Matt Cross hit one of the clutchest shots that you will see in college basketball this year as the Louisville Cardinals went into Raleigh and defeated the NC State Wolfpack on Saturday. We're going to talk about that men's basketball win along with the volleyball team advancing to the Sweet 16 and the women's basketball team ending the week with a solid win against Belmont, all right here on this episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Happy Monday. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On the Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode is brought to you by Sonos. Sonos is the official sponsor of ESPN College Football. Go to sonos.com to learn more. Also want to say thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week, including on YouTube. Your team every day. Look, there's a lot of uncertainty regarding the Louisville athletics department. A lot of speculation going on right now. There is a board of trustees meeting set to discuss personnel matters this evening at 5 o'clock Eastern. Look, I'm not going to speculate on any of that just now. We'll wait till some more stuff comes out before we talk about it on this show. I want to talk about what we do know, and that is in terms of the athletics department. There was a good weekend across a handful of different sports. The Louisville men's basketball team edging out the NC State Wolfpack on Saturday to claim their first ACC win of the season, 73-68. We'll talk about the key takeaways from that contest, and then we'll transition over into volleyball, who defeated UIC and Ball State over the weekend to advance to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. We'll talk about that matchup with Florida, along with some storylines in that one. And then finally, we'll end the show with some women's basketball talk following a big blowout win over Michigan on earlier this week. They concluded the week with a win over Belmont on Sunday afternoon. We'll talk about the key takeaways from that matchup. Before we get into the content of today's show, like I mentioned, for those who are not aware of who I am, my name is Dalton Pence. I'm a credential media member for Cardinal Sports Zone, where I serve as both a football beat writer and a recruiting analyst. You can follow my personal Twitter in the handle in the graphic below. And you can follow the podcast Twitter page at LO_Louisville. So let's get right on into it. Matt Cross, what a shot. Was one of probably the most clutchest shots for the Louisville basketball program in the past 10 years. Dre Davis couldn't have put the ball any better into Matt Cross's breadbasket, and Matt did what he does best, and that is shoot the ball very well from behind the arc. The shot clock was at about 2. There's about 30 seconds to go, and it was a very ballsy play call. I will say that. It took a lot of guts to make that call, but perfect execution on the Cardinals' end, and the team was able to come out with a victory. Now, this was an interesting game because the Louisville Cardinals really got things going at the end of that first half, and they went into halftime with a 14-point lead, and then chaos broke out. NC State came roaring back early on in the second period, and things got really interesting. And at one point, Louisville took turns with NC State, going back to a 5-point deficit for the Cards, but Noah Locke able to hit a key three that tied the game up late in the second half, and then the rest is history with Matt Cross hitting a shot in the corner as well. But very solid win. Some key takeaways for this game. I think that we're still kind of waiting for Louisville to put together a full performance, a full good performance. There's been stretches in multiple games in the past 2 weeks to where this team has shown examples of extreme brilliance, and you see the potential of where the offense can go. The defense and the effort and intensity on that end of the court has always kind of been there, and I think that kind of helps to bridge over the lulls on the offensive side of the ball. But some of those offensive issues reared their ugly head again on the road here in Raleigh on Saturday. Like I mentioned, a 14-point lead pretty much evaporated 5 minutes into the second half, and just kind of continuing that trend that Louisville's kind of struggled to hold on to leads. So overall, I thought that, a win is a win, especially on the conference. These wins start to pile up. As I mentioned, this was almost a must-win for the Cards. The Cardinals, shout out to my buddy Alan Thomas over there at the state of Louisville. He tweeted out after the game that Louisville now has 3 quadrant 1 wins, which ties the amount that they had all last season. That was a tidbit that I was not aware of. And that just goes to show how important the early portion of the season is. Although this team may not be able to put it all together right away in terms of rotations, in terms of chemistry, etc., being able to get these wins, especially on the road, really bodes well for the Cards come tournament time. You can never have too many wins. But there's a couple of things that kind of made me it brought some concern again. Number one is the struggles for Jae'Lyn Withers continue. Only 17 minutes played for the Cards. That is the lowest out of any of the starters by far. Only had 3 points. He was 1 for 6 from the field, 0 for 2 from behind the arc. He did have 6 rebounds to go with 2 personal fouls, turned the ball over once. But at the end of the day, for those looking for Jae'Lyn Withers to turn the corner in this one, it wasn't going to happen. That's kind of something that we'll have to keep a close eye on because he came into this season. Jae'Lyn Withers was one of those players that, could end up being an all-ACC type selection, could end up playing himself maybe into first-round consideration of the NBA draft. But right now, through 8 games, we're just not seeing at all what we saw last year. And I wonder, I posed this question to Jeremy Wallman last Wednesday, does Jae'Lyn Withers need to go back at the 5 like he did last year when Malik Williams was hurt to get the most out of him to maximize his impact on the court? It just looks it looks like he's almost out of position, and he's got the skill set to be able to play the stretch big as the 4, but necessarily hasn't found his footing. I'm not going on to say the effort and stuff is not there, but it just seems like the difference from where we saw Withers last year to where he is through the first 8 games. I mean, it's alarming. I tried to chalk it up as some early season rust, but as of right now, he's in a big rut, and he's going to have to get out of that soon because it remains a tough schedule for the month of December before the team inevitably hops into conference play full time. So Jae'Lyn Withers not necessarily playing all that well. It is one of the takeaways that we have to focus on, the key reaction. I thought that the team shot well from deep. They're 11 for 28, just under 40% from the 3-point line. NC State, they were 28.6% from the 3-point line. They held Darion Seaborn to 11 points in the game, 4 of 13 field goals. Just so happens Helms, Hayes, Smith all scored over 15 points. A key tidbit that I found very interesting is the fact that NC State got 0 points out of their bench players. In fact, only 2 played over 13 minutes per game, and that was Pass and Allen. Ross and Gibson came in and played 2 and 4 minutes respectively. So all of the contributions pretty much came from the starting 5 for the NC State Wolfpack. And when you look at Louisville, 5 players in double digits. Malik Williams with 14 and 11. Dre Davis had 11. Noah Locke with 12. L. Ellis with 11. Matt Cross with 13. We mentioned coming into this matchup that, hey, we needed to see, if we don't have a number 1 scoring option, okay, but you're going to have multiple guys step up. That's what happened against NC State. I felt like, it's just a matter of staying on the gas for, all 40 minutes. And, I feel like a lot of that will come, finding out the rotations, finding out getting through some chemistry lulls and stuff like that. But, some of these same issues, bad shot selection, turning the ball over, going through some scoring droughts in the worst of times, kind of came about in that second half. And luckily, the Cards were able to escape with a win. I think the main takeaway from this one is the fact that the Cards, played, far from perfect, but were able to, grind out a win on the road against a very solid NC State team. And that's something that can't be overlooked as, yes, sometimes wins aren't pretty, sometimes losses aren't ugly. I mean, at the end of the day, you take it and move on. But ultimately, some of these issues we still look to get resolved throughout. So, the Cards will host DePaul on Friday evening. DePaul just suffered the first loss of the season. We'll preview that matchup as the week goes on. I want to focus on the Louisville volleyball team now in the Sweet 16 after a very successful week. And we're going to talk about what the team did over the weekend, but after we talk about our friends at PrizePicks. If you are a college football fanatic or a college sports fanatic in general, you need to hear about PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy. I love it, and I know you will too. It offers more college football props than anyone in the world, and offers all the star players of the Power 5 as well as mid-majors that you might not have ever heard of. PrizePicks offers any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown. All of those that deposit and use the promo code LOCKEDON will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So basically, you'll pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. And it's literally just you versus the projected numbers. It also allows mixed sports entries. So, for example, you can take the over on Justin Herbert, and you combine that with the under on Mike Trout in the same entry. Be sure to use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's safe. It offers fast withdrawals. Don't hesitate. Check out PrizePicks.com right now and use the promo code LOCKEDON, or go to your App Store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. All right. So the Louisville volleyball team handled business, not really surprising to anyone, but 2 sweeps over the weekend, which, is what we expected from this team. So they defeated UIC in 3 on, I think it's Friday. Friday. No, it's Friday. I'm sitting here losing my days. But a 3-0 sweep against UIC in that first one. It really wasn't all that big of a contest for the Cards. DeBeer, Chaussee, Iko Jones combined for just under 35 kills each combined. Maya Tillman had 6 blocks. Anna Stevenson with 4. Tori Dilfer with 4. The net presence was very key for the Cards against University of Illinois Chicago. And then Ball State, that matchup came. It was the matchup of the Cardinals. Kind of got interesting in that first set. Louisville won 29-27 in the first set, but after that, it was pretty much smooth sailing for the home team. 25-11, 25-19 after that. It really was just kind of full dominance put on display. Iko Jones, Anna DeBeer, Anna Stevenson, 10, 9, and 7 kills respectively. And, like I mentioned, that net presence defensively, Anna Stevenson had 5 blocks, Tori Dilfer with 3, Iko Jones with 3. So they move on to the Sweet 16 this Thursday for a 1 o'clock first serve at Freedom Hall. And I got to be honest, 1 o'clock for the number 1 overall seeded volleyball team is kind of outlandish to me. The fact that it wasn't going to be a primetime game just kind of rubs me the wrong way. But, oh well, you can't really complain. They're in the Sweet 16. They take on the number 16th ranked Florida Gators, who come into this matchup with a overall 22-8 record. Looking into what they've been able to do this season, they've got some big-time ranked wins throughout the year. They beated a top opponent in Minnesota early on in the year. Moving forward, they beaten Tennessee earlier in November. But in terms of their losses, some teams that Louisville has beaten that Florida has lost to, most recently, the last series of the season for the Gators, lost in 3-0 sweeps, respectively, in back-to-back matches against the Kentucky Wildcats, who Louisville beat in 5 sets. They also have a loss to LSU, Mississippi State at Florida State, who the Cards defeated 3-0. They lost to Baylor 3-1, Stanford 3-1. So, there was some controversy heading into the season, or not the season, but the tournament, asking if Florida should have been ranked. I wanted to kind of get a glimpse of what the Gators would bring to the table, because I'm not one to really look ahead to matchups, but I kind of wanted to peek ahead to what the Sweet 16 could be like for the Cardinals. And judging just upon some social media platforms and some volleyball forums, it was very clear that the decision to put Florida as the last ranked seed didn't kind of mull over well with some fan bases, which, it happens. Any fan base that gets snubbed is obviously going to think that their respective team should have made it into the national ranking. But the Florida Gators stumbled in that last weekend to the Kentucky Wildcats. So they will take on them on Thursday. Florida comes with 2 sweeps, first to Florida A&M and next to Miami of Florida. So on the other side of the bracket, we look ahead. I'm not wanting to jump the gun and say, okay, here's what's going to happen in the Elite Eight. But assuming that the Cardinals make it into the Final 8 field, they will take on the winner of Ohio State, which is the ninth seed, and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, the 8th seed. A very familiar foe for the Cardinals, who have swept the Yellow Jackets 3-0 in back-to-back matches, both first in Atlanta and then at L&N Federal Credit Union Arena. I will say, familiarity might help the Cards in this situation, but it is very tough to defeat a team 3 times in a row, 3 times in one season, let alone. So, going to be a very challenging match, whoever the volleyball team has to play, but I am definitely insisting that if you have nothing to do Thursday afternoon, I know a lot of people work, but tickets go on sale today. Whenever you're listening to this, they go on sale on Monday for general tickets for that match against Florida. But I'm going with the Cards to win 3-1 in this matchup. The good thing about Louisville is even when they do drop a set, we saw that both against Pittsburgh and we saw that against Notre Dame, is their ability to snap back into form, to be able to handle adversity and use it to their benefit is incredible. And I think that is the kind of the number one telltale sign of just a pure-on dominant team. An elite team is just how well they're able to handle the punches. And I think that, Florida is a team that has shown that they can handle with the big dogs in the country. They've got some pretty solid wins. But when they've played, formidable foes, some familiar constant and consistent foes that Louisville has played, I'm not necessarily one to sit here and say, okay, because they lost to Kentucky and Louisville beat Kentucky, it doesn't matter. Louisville's going to win. Same thing with Florida State. But what I am saying is you kind of get a glimpse, just how dominant Kentucky was against Florida in that in those 2 matches at the end of the season. Louisville's playing some very good volleyball, and hopefully by this time next week we'll be previewing the Final 4 match up in Columbus for the Louisville volleyball team. But first serve set at Freedom Hall, 1 o'clock. On Thursday, when the number 1 Louisville volleyball team, 30-0 on the season, will take on the 22-8 number 16 seeded Florida Gators, who have lost to some opponents that Louisville has beaten throughout the season. Going to be a very tough match regardless. So let's transition into the final segment of the show with the women's basketball team ending the week with a solid win against the Belmont Bruins on Sunday afternoon at the KFC Yum Center. Before we talk about that, I want to talk about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As the football season continues the march to the playoffs, it remains your number 1 spot for all of the sports action. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit by using the promo code LOCKEDON. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. It's the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports, and BetOnline is where the game starts. Also want to talk to you about our friends at Built Bar. It is now getting closer into Christmas and the holidays. Be sure to grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. It's filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. And there's just so many different flavors you can choose from raspberry or mint brownie, cherry or double chocolate, cookies or cream, or peanut butter brownie. Built Bar gives you that full extra fuel you need to bust down those mall doors and battle all the holiday shoppers. Or if you're just standing in endless shopping lines, Built Bar can give you that extra something you need to keep going. So throw one in your jacket or purse. You never know when you're going to need it. You're friends with Santa? Well, that's good. Tell Santa to throw a few Built Bars in those stockings. With so many flavors, they'd make anyone's Christmas morning a happy one. To get this, you need to really keep in mind that people are very passionate about their Built Bar flavors. So yes, this is a season of peace and love, but don't bring up your favorite Built Bar flavors at family parties. People may fight you for it because they are so passionate. You don't want things to get out of hand. Do yourself a favor, go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your first order. Once again, that is using the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. So, final segment of the show, Louisville women's basketball team defeating the Belmont Bruins 80-66 in the KFC Yum Center on Sunday afternoon with a very good week for the team. And I think that if anything, what this game showed us is the fact that just this team is truly balanced, all throughout the rotation. Emily Inkstler, who had a very solid game against the Michigan Wolverines earlier in the week, didn't necessarily live up to what she did just a couple days ago, but did have a respectable 9 points, 8 rebounds. All 5 starters for the Cards scored at least 9 points. Olivia Cochran had 10 and 7. Haley Van Lith, 16 points, 5 rebounds. Kiana Smith, 14 points, 5 assists. Chelsea Hall with 11 points. You look at what they got from the bench production. Liz Dixon with 8, Marissa Russell with 2, Alana Smith with 6, Mikasa Robinson with 4. Those are the only 4 on the bench that were able to find their way onto the score sheet. The first thing that jumps off the page for me, number one, is the fact that Haley Van Lith got going again. Van Lith had struggled early on in the season, especially with her perimeter shot, and albeit she was only 1 for 3 in this contest today from behind the arc, but she led the way with a team-high 16 points. I thought that she was very solid in driving to the basket and finishing around the hoop, using her frame. Although she's not the biggest guard, was able to use her frame to get it up on the glass and put it through, and I thought that she played extremely well yesterday afternoon. Kiana Smith, over 1,000 career points for her career. Very solid from her. It was funny, they announced it at the Yum Center and they showed her face, and you could just tell, she was zoned in. There was didn't even crack a smile, it seemed like, when that was announced. But some more of the same from Jeff Walls' squad against the Bruins. Defense turned to offense. I thought they did really well at guarding the Bruins in the first 3 quarters. The last quarter, Belmont was able to cut the lead. Louisville led by over 20 in this game. Belmont outscored the Cards 22-16 in the final period and shot 31%. They shot 31% from deep. And the Cards shot 50%, only 5 for 10 from behind the arc. For the Bruins, it was all Destiny Wells, the 5'6" sophomore point guard, had 19 points in this one, 7 turnovers, however. And then Madison Bartley had 11 for the Bruins, and those were the only 2 in double figures. So there were some spots in the fourth quarter where Walls called timeout just because the play got a little sloppy. They were able to get some good reserve minutes in the third quarter. Liz Dixon, I thought, played really well in the offensive part of the game in the third quarter. But it kind of reaffirmed what everyone thinks, and that's the fact that, Louisville just kind of doesn't have that number one scorer this year, and that's okay. But like for the men's basketball aspect of it, if you don't have the number one scorer, you have to have multiple players that step up, and you saw that on Sunday afternoon. I thought Haley Van Lith played her best game of the season so far, all across the board. Kiana Smith played well. Olivia Cochran played well. Liz Dixon played well. Emily Inkstler, et cetera, Chelsea Hall. The thing that really just jumps out to me is the fact that this may be one of Jeff Walls' best defensive teams that he's had here at Louisville. I mean, they have everything you can ask for. They have the rim protection. I think that Liz Dixon is an above-average rim protector. Olivia Cochran is very good around the basket in terms of post defense, and Emily Inkstler is the best shot blocker on the team, probably one of the better shot blockers in the ACC, only at 6'1". On-ball defense out on the perimeter, like we mentioned last week at the conclusion of the week, Louisville had been needing an athletic wing that could defend well, and slash Emily Inkstler has been all that plus more for the Cardinals. A big addition to this team that goes beyond the box score. It is, does this team wonders to have an athletic wing that can defend some premier players in college basketball. And then you have the guard defense up top. Mikasa Robinson is one of the better on-ball defenders in the ACC. Chelsea Hall has proven to be very, very good defensively. Kiana Smith, Alana Smith, Haley Van Lith, etc. 1 through 5, this is a team that makes you work for your shot. And multiple times on Sunday, Belmont is a team. Yes, they're 4-4 now, but they beat they beat Ole Miss earlier in the season. This is a team that is hung in games with some key competition in the ACC as well. So a very respectable opponent, not necessarily one of the best teams in the nation, but a respectable opponent nonetheless. The women's basketball team will host Kentucky next Sunday. Currently ranked number 10 when this episode comes out, but I would assume that they go up just a little bit in the new AC or the new AP rankings. I can't speak today, but very solid week for them with a win against Michigan, 70-48 on Thursday evening. They turn around with a big win against Belmont on Sunday afternoon. So we're starting to see this Jeff Walz team shake off rust a little bit. The defense has turned into good offense. They're doing well in transition. And I like the fact that you have Emily Inkstler as a pick and roll big, so to speak. Even at 6'1", she plays like a wing. She can use her length to kind of slide into being a big at times and work in that pick and roll. I think that this team has so many ways that they can beat you in terms of offensive weapons, and it's going to be interesting as we get further into this December month. Kentucky is on the horizon, and quickly after that, UConn is also in the month of December. So we'll talk more about this Kentucky matchup later on in the week. It'll probably be a Friday episode, Thursday or Friday episode, one of the two. But we definitely will have you covered here on the Locked On Louisville podcast. Before we get out of here, I want to give a couple quick shout outs. First to the Cardinal Sports Zone podcast. There wasn't an episode this week, but you can find the most recent one with some good relevant information at cardinalsportszone.com. Also want to give a quick shout out to the Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q with handicapping expert from Lee Sterling. You can get that on the Odyssey app or wherever you like to get your podcast. But that's going to wrap up this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville show. Everyone have a great start to your week, regardless of what happens in the coming days. With the athletic department, keep your head up, but most importantly, go Cards.